Welcome back to the What's More podcast. I'm your host, Quentin Harris, and I am dialed in with a guest who's going to be a start-standing host on our show here with me here, Mr. Lenny Curry. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be back. Thanks.
Yeah, so for those that don't know Lenny, we did an episode with him, and just to kind of give you a little brief background, Lenny was our former mayor here in Jacksonville, has intimate detail of a lot of things here in Jacksonville as well, a lot of political contacts that are quite unique to the show, and we're going to bring those to life here in multiple episodes. And today I want to talk about something that's really at the forefront of really over the next couple of weeks heading into the season. Let's talk about our Jaguars. Let's talk about what's happening here in Jacksonville, mainly this major renovation that just got passed. And, this was on your plate as your last term here as a mayor in Jacksonville. And there's some things that you know about this that I think are super interesting to our audience. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the renovations, timeframes, things of that nature, and then also break down, why this is so important. So let's start with that. One of 32 teams in the NFL. How hard was it for us to get this team here in Jacksonville? Give us a feel of what it took to get that here.
So I was much younger at the time,
right.
But I remember following it and actually looking at the history of it over the last few years. So back in the 90s, we wanted the National Football League here in Jacksonville. At one point, we had the USFL. You may recall. I think that was in the 80s.
A lot of people don't know that.
Right. And we are a football town.
Right.
Historically have been collegiate football. High school is obviously very popular here as well, as we both know about Friday Night Lights.
That's right.
And love. But there was a major effort with the business community and the city of Jacksonville in the 90s. Tom Petway at the time, a local executive in town who's a friend, he was one of the early guys that kind of led the charge and was one of the original owners, minority owners. And they found Wayne Weaver, obviously, who was a tremendous gift to Jacksonville. But if you go back at that period of time, that deal almost fell apart.
Right.
Everybody was ready to walk. But everybody rallied, and we became one of 32 to have an NFL franchise in our city.
Yeah. Super special when you think about it, because there's multiple states that have, like us, we have multiple teams in this state, right?
That's right.
So it's not like there's just 32 states out of 50 that have a team. It's very rare to have a team in your backyard.
It is rare.
And the impact is tremendous for having that team.
And just from a numbers perspective, just economics. Football is king.
Right.
The National Football League is king. And the eyes it puts on your city, right, when you're on television is a big deal.
Yeah, and for our audience, whether you live in Jacksonville or not, I want you to think about your NFL team, the team that you gravitate towards, right? You've had your ups and downs. You may even have your team pulled from your city and brought back or removed. So we all have this emotional tie to the NFL, and Lord knows after what Taylor Swift just brought to the NFL, we have a whole other generation that's tied to the NFL right now. So like you said, the NFL is king, right? All eyes are on this, and it's super cool to have one in our backyard. And so kind of as we go through this ideology of a renovation, I kind of want to start with, why can't Khan? We have an owner.
Right.
He's a billionaire, right? I don't know at what level, but I know it's a mega billionaire. He's
mega.
It's mega. I see his yacht that's docked out there.
It's a B with a lot of B's.
A B with a BBB, right? It's a lot. Well, if you're a citizen of Jacksonville, or any citizen of a state where there's an NFL team where you're going, why can't the owner just pay for it? They got the money. Why can't? I'm sure they gladly would. Why couldn't they pay for it?
Because whatever deal a city reaches with their team on a stadium build or renovation, that has to then be voted on by all of the owners at the owners' meetings.
So let me make sure I understand that. So if there's 32 owners,
right, and
that means the other 31 have to go, hey, Shad, we're good with that. Go ahead and pay for it.
Yes, in a vote. It's a formal vote. It's like a board. I haven't been there, but so, I would envision it like a board meeting.
So you got Jerry sitting in a corner. You got Jerry Jones sitting in a corner. Do you think he cares?
Well, I will say this. I know this.
Okay.
This is uniformly known inside football, inside the NFL. They would not ratify an owner at this moment in time investing 100% in a stadium.
Okay.
And market size matters too. So we're not a large market, right? We're comparable to a Nashville and a Buffalo. So even if an owner wanted to pay for 70% of the stadium build or renovation, it would not pass.
Interesting.
So you have to know going in, why negotiate a deal, right, that is going to go before the ownership group and get shot down. So if you look at the deal that was negotiated, it's comparable to what other markets our size have done.
Okay.
In fact, I would argue that the administration did a really good job on this front. It's arguably even a little bit sweeter on the city side than on our side, the city of Jacksonville, than some of the other cities have got.
Okay. So hats off. Good job.
So heads off to the administration and hat also to the Jags for doing what they could as far as they could go in terms of their investment and getting a deal that should be ratified by the other owners.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that shows the level of commitment from the Jaguars organization to the city. I mean, we always know the city wanted it, but the city can only do so much, right? And I think there's this doubt, like when we started playing in London years ago, there was this notion that started floating around, like, is he moving the team? Is he moving the team? And I think that the exposure was more so building the brand than moving the team. And, from a marketing standpoint, a businessman, I could see that. But I don't think there was ever a doubt he didn't want to be here. And I think this just reaffirms that commitment based on what you just said.
It has. And if you look at even in the last 8 or 9 years, they're dated now, but they were new 9 years ago. The big scoreboards that they put up at the time were the biggest at the time.
Yeah.
My first year or two in office, they built the amphitheater in that practice field that was attached. I mean, those were major investments on his part too. Those were 50-50 deals.
Okay.
So Shad did 50% of those deals. The city did 50% of those deals. And I would remind your listeners that the city owns those facilities.
Right.
Those are city assets. So yeah, he's demonstrated his commitment over the years. I never had a doubt the stadium deal would get done. And I never had a doubt that this is where they want to be.
Yeah, because in your time as mayor, you had a lot of workings with the Jaguars, and you got a chance to know them. So you know his commitment. You know where he wanted to be, and what his plans were in London and why he was doing such, and the level of exposure it brought for Jacksonville over there.
That's right. And if you just having watched Mark Lamping over the years, I mean, he's got obviously a tremendous responsibility between all the business side of football. But I mean, I saw firsthand his commitment to wanting Jacksonville to be a sustainable business model for the team so they would remain in Jacksonville.
And see, a lot of people don't recognize this. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's my understanding the Jaguars were the first NFL team to set up office locations internationally for their team
I think you're right.
in London.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing, and we've consistently, now other teams had played there before, but we were the only team to consistently say we're going to be here every year. Now we're up to 2 games a year, and we have offices and we have administration over here. Other teams have caught on.
Right.
From the Patriots, they're starting to do the same thing. I mean, when's the last time you've seen Jacksonville lead the forefront on something like that? And we did it. And I think that's really cool for our team and our city.
And by the way, I've been to London for a number of the games over the years. If you've got your attire on, I mean, they recognize you. They know the team.
It's been there 10 years.
They know the team.
That's super cool. So that's super cool. So the renovation is getting done. And you said something earlier. So for our audience, I think what I heard there was this, that the owners, they've got a preset terms they're going to agree on. So why negotiate an agreement that you know is going to go in there?
I would imagine there's a window.
Yeah, it's like a matrix.
There's a space of where they know is going to fit within that window and likely get ratified.
And so I think another point for our audience that they should understand is that Buffalo is a small market. Nashville's considered a small market, which is hard for me to believe right now because they're so big, but they're still in that small market range. Indianapolis, small range, right? So if we did anything where our ownership said, I'm going to cover 70 or 100%, and that got approved, that could be detrimental to those other markets when the time comes to renovate or build a new stadium.
Correct.
Because then the terms have already been set that, hey, Jacksonville did it that way. Why should we as a city of Indianapolis even pay? Because it was already done.
That's right.
It's already been set. So
but the owners, I think, I mean, this is my understanding. I haven't spoken to any of the other owners. I believe that they want to see skin.
From the city.
They want to see skin, yeah. Now, what is different, for example, us in Buffalo. So Buffalo, the state of New York is contributing some of that money.
Okay.
Just the philosophy of state government in the state of Florida, and I respect it. Like, nope, the state's not investing in sports stadiums. So it's up to individual cities to figure that out.
Right. That makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense. And, and I think the other thing with this is
I mean, if you think about that, actually, from a policy perspective, if the state's putting, like, you're going to ask somebody in Pensacola to pay for a stadium in another
in Miami that's 12 hours away. Like, why would you do that to somebody? That makes complete sense. Yeah, I agree with that. So, we talked about this is why this has to be done this way and why other cities would not be excited to have an NFL team for an owner to pay for that. So as we went into this, so the city council, as you exited, now this was put on our new mayor's task to handle. She did it rather quickly. I thought it would be done a little sooner, but I understand why. And her and the administration of the Jaguars, the ownership team of the Jaguars, came together, presented a deal, and it's pretty outstanding when you look at what's happening here, because let's go back to Nashville. Their stadium was so bad. And and no offense, hey, I'm from Nashville, guys, no offense. I think you would agree. If you live in Nashville, that stadium needed to be redone. There's no renovating that place, right?
Right.
And then I've seen some renovations, and they're getting a $6.5 billion stadium, right? I mean, they are blowing it out. It looks amazing what they're going to do. I would challenge ours is going to look just as good. I would say I've been to some renovations. Chicago fans, no offense, but it looks like a UFO landed on top of your stadium. I've been there. I've been in the club section. I mean, it's a lot different than some of these other ones. Another one, Miami. Listen, Miami needed some help. It got it. I think they missed the mark in some areas.
I thought we were going to go down into a UFO alien discussion for a second.
I'll leave
we'll
that
save
one
that for another day.
Yeah, I'll leave that one alone. But, you look at what's being done and what's presented on ours. Is this the start for Jacksonville to put their hat in the ring for a Super Bowl?
I think that's way down. And again, I'm not speaking for a team or anything.
Sure.
But I think way down the road. I think eventually, sure. Okay. But I think the draft
first, then Super Bowl. Yeah,
but we need hotels, and we need high end hotels. The beginning of that will be the Four Seasons,
right? Which
Shad is building on our riverfront downtown. But in order to host those types of events the right way, we're going to need
more leisure and hospitality.
But that's coming.
It's coming. I mean, it's all in the works.
When the Four Seasons vertical, expect to see others.
Yes, that's exactly right.
There it is.
If you build it, they will come type mentality. And going back to the auditorium that was built, that Daly's Place, when they built that, I always envisioned that was a draft. That was built for the draft.
Right.
Like I always thought like, oh my gosh, they built that to host a draft. And to your point, I've always thought it was draft first, Super Bowl second. If the city hosts the draft well, then you're going to get the Super Bowl as long as the stadium and facilities match.
But I think the stadium, I've seen the renderings. I mean, it's going to be beautiful.
Oh, it's going to be amazing.
Right. And it's going to, even though it's going to be covered, it's going to have open air space, but it's going to be the way the way it's architecturally designed. It will cool in a way that drops those August, September.
It's going to be nice.
Sometimes October temperatures.
That blazing sun.
If you've ever, people always say, if you're sitting on the east side, obviously the sun's right on your face at 1:00 in the afternoon. And that is, I sit on the west side.
Right.
So I can't imagine how bad it is on the east side, because even on the west side,
it's hot.
At 1:00, it's hot.
You're talking to an east side guy over here.
Yeah, it's hot.
I'm on the club on the east side. I'm on the business side, and it's hot. It's definitely hot. You wear sun shirts for a reason over there. We always laugh. We're like, it's a 2-shirt day. You wear one in the parking lot, then you change before you go in the stadium. It's so hot. So let's talk about this for a second. So this has an economic impact of $26 billion over 30 years to the city.
Right.
Do we have another entity? Do we have another revenue stream that creates $26 billion a year over 30 years?
I mean, that's obviously, if so, that's going to be in the top 1, 2, 3.
Got it.
I mean, we've obviously got institutions here that, for example, Mayo, when Mayo came here, what a win when Mayo Clinic came to Jacksonville.
Huge.
I would imagine that their long-term economic impact is significant.
And they're one of 3.
Right.
Yeah. So,
right. But to answer your question, certainly this is the economic impact of this deal will be one of the biggest of all time, if not the biggest.
Oh, I agree. And, for those listening, if you want to take a look at this, I actually have the Stadium of the Future's economic framework right here up on our screen. And Charlie's going to put this in our show notes over at YouTube at What's Your One More. Go subscribe. You'll get a copy of this. This is wonderful, though. I mean, when you take a look at this and they show what we're spending and what we're getting and why it was so important to keep the Jaguars here, this is a no-brainer.
Think about the other piece of this. So the annual Florida-Georgia game.
A lot of,
which has been here since the 1930s. And that deal has to be renewed every few years. When I was in office, I think we got a 2-year extension. But without this stadium deal,
that was in jeopardy.
That game's in jeopardy.
Yeah, that was a home and home game at that point.
That's right. And so that is last time I looked at the numbers, that's a $30+ million economic impact every year on Jacksonville. Wow. Not to mention the tradition. And then think about with this new stadium, the other sporting events that can be attracted to a state-of-the-art stadium, because it's going to be state-of-the-art. It's going to be effectively a new stadium.
Yes, without a doubt.
I mean, you're basically just saving the bones because the bones are good.
Yeah.
And think about the concerts, potentially the big names.
We already get big ones, but maybe you get a Taylor Swift.
Right.
Maybe she comes here, Maybe you get a huge name that's been kind of stepping around the city, going to Tampa or Orlando, now makes their way up here. And with that new overhang that you're describing, rain may not be an issue anymore.
It opens a lot of doors.
That's a lot of doors.
Yeah.
And so the one thing that it does do is it poses the question of, hey, we got one of the larger NFL stadiums. How are you going to do the construction? Because this is a 3-year, 4-year project. How do you do this? And where do you keep the city and maintain it? And some of those questions, recently have been answered through the construction timelines from 25 all the way to 28. And again, we'll have those in our show notes if you want to take a look at them on our YouTube channel. But the capacity they said in 24 obviously is not going to change. But in 25, they said it's going to look similar as they start the construction. So there's just going to be a few seats removed. But 26 is where it starts to bode the question, because we were talking about this. What if the Jacksonville Jaguars hit a streak?
Right.
What if we're a major playoff team in 24 or 25?
Right.
And all of a sudden, that fan base really
You have
grows.
limited capacity.
Yeah, to the tune of 43,500.
What I would say to fans like I go to the games, all the games, home games, and have for years, but the stadium had to be renovated.
Absolutely.
There's this, without the stadium renovation, you don't keep the team.
Right.
You just don't.
Yeah. And we lose all the other benefits you described. Florida, Georgia, bowl game, et cetera.
And that's not because the ownership locally was saying that. That's because the NFL's, you guys you got to do something with that stadium. So we had to do the stadium. Initially, it was believed that we may have to play like all the games in another place.
Like Daytona or even Gainesville. Yeah.
So now we're down to 1 year, as I understand it, right? Just out.
Just 27.
So whatever the capacity is in that second year, 40-some thousand, you said, right?
43,500.
I would just say to fans, if you're frustrated, let's just take a breath and be grateful that we still have home games that year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And if the Jaguars, here's a thought, I'm not in the war room. I'm not thinking about how they're going to do this. Instead of doing a lottery system, right? Or saying, hey, you've been here for this year, because you don't want to punish new Jaguar fans, right? You want them to feel the experience. Take the season ticket holders, all of them, and say, you're going to get these 3 games. You're going to get these 3 games, or these 2 games, right? Because you only have 8, including, and they take 2 and put them overseas. You're going to get these picks, and you're going to get to come to some home games, just not all of them.
Right.
And you're going to get charged for those. And divvy it out to where everybody gets an opportunity to say yes or no.
Yeah, I have no insight into how they'll handle that, but you're a season ticket holder.
Going on 11 years now.
You should email them.
That's right. I will, actually. You know what? I am going to do that after the show, because I think that's important, because, obviously I'm not in the war room. We don't get a decision here. But I would say, instead of drawing a lottery and then someone that, like myself, I miss out. And, we have 4 season tickets. We've been doing it. It's a family day for us. Maybe you say, listen, you're going to get 4 tickets for 2 games, right? And those are the 2 that we have capacity for. And you don't get to pick them. We're going to pick them for you. And I'll be like, hey, man, it's better than having nothing.
Right.
Right. And then the person that's a brand new season ticket holder that wants to enjoy it, they should get that option as well, So, I'm definitely going to do that, actually. Yeah. And then in 27 poses the question, where do you think they'll play? Like, that's interesting. Is it going to be in Gainesville? Is it going to be down in Orlando at the Citrus? Or is it going to be, you think, in
those have all been
Daytona?
All 3 of those have been discussed. I just don't have an update on.
Yeah, I think Daytona would be awful viewing points. I think race car speedways.
Yeah, I think what's challenging about one of the challenges about that, my understanding, is how far removed the fans would be from the actual event.
There would be no home crowd advantage.
Right.
Unless you're running cars around it the entire time making noise, which would be a danger zone.
So I would expect. I don't know when they're going to announce location, but I would expect soon. I did see. And they said it's not connected at all, but I did see the Jags and the University of Florida announced a joint deal around healthcare recently. So we know they're talking.
That's probably a smoke signal. What's going to happen there?
We know they're talking for sure, and we know that University of Florida has a strong connection, relationship, and presence with Jacksonville, the city of Jacksonville. They have the UF hospital right here, which makes
sense,
right? And they're bringing the. When I was in office, we secured some state funding to bring a UF graduate campus to Jacksonville. And even since I've left, the legislature put more money this last session into that. So the UF City of Jacksonville relationship is
strong,
pretty. Yeah,
and it makes sense. I mean, hey, why don't you stay Saturday night, watch the game on Sunday?
Right.
If you're going to do it, you already got fans there anyway. So they probably recognize Gainesville sells out every Saturday. You got a fan base already there. You might as well keep them till Sunday. That might be a good idea in the making there. Be a little more difficult.
You know what? If you have to watch some games at home in that year, or those 2-year window, I mean, because I go to all the games, as do you. When you watch it on TV, Like if you watch the replay, you realize some of what you missed because the cameras
Correct.
are amazing.
That's correct.
Right?
Yeah. You're not missing out on too much, right?
Yeah,
You're still going
right.
to be in the game per se. So this thing gets built. It's going to be amazing. 28 all-season ticket holders are back in. All seats will be up and running. It's not only going to be a brand new stadium, it's going to be a state-of-the-art. And when you see this thing, when it's done, it's going to reaffirm not only the Jaguars' commitment to Jacksonville, but Jacksonville's commitment to the Jaguars.
Right.
And guys, think about this. If we're running and gunning and remotely making our way up the charts to be better, this could be one of the biggest things that the city has done probably in the last 5 years as far as putting itself back on the map.
Yeah, well, the biggest in a long
time.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
long time.
A really long time. And I think when this is done, so I've been the new stadium out in LA and the new stadium in Vegas. I've been to both of those. They're beautiful.
Yeah, I've heard great things.
I think when people walk in and see ours when it's done,
it's going to rival those.
They have nothing on us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, because I've heard nothing but great things about that stadium in Vegas. And then I've only known a few that went to a couple games out there, including yourself, to LA.
Yeah.
So it's going to be exciting times, and it's going to be fun to be a part of it. And I think from a taxpayer's perspective, here's the $1 million question. From the taxpayer's perspective, what do you think? And again, this is talking off cuff here because you don't know as well as I don't. What do you think the burden is to the taxpayers on this? Minimal?
Look, everything's got a cost, right?
Sure.
And there's always a opportunity cost.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a cost. I mean, I don't know per taxpayer,
sure,
but it comes down to priorities. That's what it comes down to. And this had to be a priority. Yeah. It was a priority. I commend the administration on getting it done. But I think I'll say this: the cost to taxpayers if we didn't do this and lost the team. That's the real cost.
That's the answer I was looking for. Yeah,
right.
it would have businesses would have hurt from them not being
Absolutely.
here. And it's not just one; it's hundreds of businesses that would have lost. And so, what you may encumber on a form of sales tax or in the form of property taxes, it's minimal compared to what would have been lost there. And I think that's the picture I want everyone to understand. Because when I saw the news stories where people were being interviewed and they're like, "Oh, I'm not a Jags fan. I don't even watch football."
Right.
Okay. Well, do you have a job?
Right.
Do you make money in this city?
Right.
Because a lot of that surrounds what that brings here, and it's not just Jags, concerts, events. Lots of things. So I'm proud to live in this city. I'm proud to be a Jaguars fan, and I'm super excited about this season.
I'm excited about
this
season too. I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I'm super
excited.
Our
defense, all the reports coming out of practice camp is the defense is
tough.
In practice, they're looking good.
Yeah,
and they're rabid.
Yeah,
and intense.
Yeah, it's going to make our offense that much better because iron sharpens iron. It's going to be a phenomenal season out there.
Just side note, I saw Josh Allen at a distance last week. Mm-hmm. He's huge. When you guys see him this year, I don't know how much muscle he's put on, but it's significant.
It's exciting.
It is.
It's exciting. Quarterbacks beware.
Right.
Quarterbacks beware. This is going to be exciting.
Those two guys coming off the edge. Right.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting time, fun stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe we get lucky. Maybe we get Mark Lampion on the show. And
we'll give it a run.
As president of the Jaguars and operations, and he can give us his take on this as well as the upcoming season. It's going to be exciting. And hey, I just can't thank you enough for being on the show. Looking forward to all these series we have to come with you because you bring a lot of content, a lot of great insight to the show, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Today.
Always fun. We'll talk aliens at some point and UFOs.
Absolutely. Hey guys, if you like what you're hearing, please 5-star review this podcast. Check us out on Apple and Spotify, any platform you listen to your podcast on, and please go to our YouTube channel at What's Your One More. Subscribe. Check out all the graphs and all the great production our producer Charlie Walker puts in there. And until the next episode, Lenny, thanks for being on the show. Great having you.
Thanks.
We'll see you guys in the next one more.